Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Breaking Barriers. Today we have Hilary with us, who is an absolute superstar. Hilary, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our audience about what you do?
Would love to. Thanks, Megan. I am Hilary DeCesare. I am the CEO, founder of the Relaunch Co. And for those that are like, what is this? What are we doing? It is, if you think about that, everybody in the entire world right now is going through some form of a relaunch, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, or whether it's just internally driven. We are all in, for the first time, this collective relaunch, this global relaunch. And so I started this about 3 years ago. Before that, I have grown up in the Silicon Valley business-wise. I worked at Oracle for 10 years, high tech. Then I ended up creating a company to help scale and grow companies that were pre-funded by venture capital firms. So I've been doing that. I've never stopped consulting. I think that, we called it consulting. Now it's coaching, but I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I got to tell you, when you think about a relaunch, it's a lot of not just the steps, because if steps got everyone where they needed to go, everyone would be successful in their businesses, in their life, in their relationships, right? But that's not the case. So I think I have really tapped into something that is extraordinary, and I'm here to share it with you.
I love that. And I think there's something so powerful about language and the language that we use, and saying relaunch as opposed to, you hear people saying, I want to start doing X, Y, and Z, or I need to start living my life. And that's not necessarily the case, right? It's really, and like you said, we're in this world where globally people are really looking at where the past few years have gotten them, and trying to figure out, what are my next few years going to be, and how do I need to change the things all around me, not just in one section of my life, to get me there. And that's something that you preach, through your social media and on your website, is, looking at your mindset, your career, your relationship. And I think all of those funnels really, they merge together, right? If you're going to make a change, you have to make a change in all aspects to get to where you need to be.
Well, and you know what's super interesting about what you're saying? I was fortunate enough to be on a ABC show called The Secret Millionaire. And what it did for me, yes, I was undercover. Yes, I got to highlight all of these amazing philanthropies that are out there. But the connections that I ended up taking from that show, the personal relationships, in fact, the CEO of one of the nonprofits ended up speaking at my second wedding. It was just a real friendship. But what I want to say is, she has just come out of the hospital from COVID. She's on oxygen. And the lesson that I learned from her during the filming of the show was, she had a company called New Hope, and New Hope was about helping people who've had a major loss, whether it was a child that died or a parent that died. And I just, I sat there and I'm like, God, just these people that I was meeting that had this massive loss. And I said, what is it like for them to relaunch into their next life? And she said, you know what? It's about new normal. It's their new normal and their new way. Well, I just saw her again recently after she'd gotten out of the hospital. And I said, well, you now have a little bit of a new normal going on right here. And she said, you know what, Hilary? It's no longer new normal for the world. It's new different. It is, everything is different. Yeah. I mean, it's a new way of being. It's a new way of, and this is the greatest part, you, your audience, we all have a choice of how do we want to show up? Who do we want to be in this next chapter, which you are now completely able to write yourself.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting space that we're in, and we're in it for the first time ever.
Yeah. Even on social media, you see a lot of posts around self-awareness and psychology and, figuring out, like you said, the new difference. Who do I want to be? And a lot of it has to do with analyzing who you were and where the world is going and, how you can kind of figure out your own behaviors and maneuver your own behaviors to be the person that you want to be. You mentioned a coach versus a consultant. Yeah. And I think everybody says, right, oh, I have a life coach, I have a business coach, I've dealt with an executive coach, right? But you say that you're a transitional coach. So what does that mean to be a transitional coach?
Yeah. So when you think about all of the relaunches that you've had in your life, and there have been positive ones that we sometimes forget, and there's the negative ones, the life altering, the jobs, the relationships, the ones that have really changed the trajectory of your journey. And when I start talking about really as a person, that, that wholeness that is not just about, like I said at the beginning of the show, I said, it's not about the steps. If it were about just, hey, let me give you the A to Z steps. You know what, Megan? I could give you all of them. I have been doing this long enough, working with thousands of people. I could do that. But why doesn't everyone have the same results? Because each and every person is so different. And you have to understand. And I'll give you a great example that just actually happened. I had a friend from high school call me, and I've been studying. I graduated with a psychology degree. I've been studying neuroscience for over 10 years. I'm passionate about this stuff. And she said, oh my gosh, something just came to me about what our principal had said to us when we were leaving and going off to college. He kind of like did a jab at us and said, oh, you're going to University of Colorado Boulder. I don't know anyone who graduated from there. And my friend took it like, I don't know if I can swear on the show, but okay, I won't. But it was like, and she really took that to be like, oh my gosh, I'm a loser for going there. Same situation, same environment. I took it like, well, I'm going to graduate. It's going to be me. Like, okay, you're going to know me. I never thought about it again. She did. And that's what happens to each and every one of us, is that you don't know what is traumatic about a situation that maybe for you, it's like, woo, no big deal. It was like Teflon. It just like rolls right off of you, versus that other person that's like Velcro, that's like, woo, it really affected them. So a transition is something that I want to help you through, whatever it is. And you might be transitioning to 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, and more, selling your company. We just had a guy sell his company for 250 million. And guess what? He was miserable. Absolutely miserable. His marriage was failing. He had no relationship with his kid and didn't know what was next. Felt like a complete failure. And so this is what happens. So when I say that I'm a transitional coach, it's a transformational transitional coach. That's really what I do. I'm looking at getting to, what is the lifestyle that you really want? What do you really want? Like, what is it that's going to light you up in the morning and is going to be in, and we hear alignment and all this stuff, but there is an alignment. And we mentioned, we talked before the show started, and I just want to mention this one thing, that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was all about IQ. It was all about your intelligence quotient. And for so many people, they had to take a test before they got a job. And for some, it was like, are you even smart enough to be married to this other person? I mean, they were using IQ like it was, the holy grail. And then in the 90s, it switched over to EQ, your emotional quotient. Are you, tapped into that emotional side? And now we're hearing a little bit about SQ and spiritual quotient. And what do you, and you talked about, this concept of people are really trying to lean inwards now and awaken. Well, I, again, have to say that individually siloed, any of those will never get you to where you ultimately want to be. Your happiness, your joy, your feeling fulfilled. You have to have the 3HQ, which is get out of your head. It's the head to the heart to the higher self. And you got to get out of your head. How do you do that? Well, it's called, you got bugs, beliefs underground surfacing. They creep up, and then you got to blast them. And then you can be able to truly utilize the steps we were talking about, and then get into your heart, your why, your emotions that are actually helping trigger what you really want, tying it in. So when you finally get to that higher version of yourself, you're like, this is rock solid. This is where I want to be. And because I've been doing this as long as I have, the success stories that I have where people are like, I never imagined a life like this. I never imagined that I could have a job like this, a career, a business. I never thought I could have these relationships. And most importantly, they've gone from that, you know how right now it's like everything is like love yourself, love your job, love your life, blah blah blah. And a lot of us deep down, we're so into self-sabotage that I'm not even sure we like ourselves.
Right.
And so what I try to do is take you through a very simplistic pathway, a journey to take you from self-sabotage, from getting rid of your bugs, to liking yourself. Hey, I kind of like myself now, to then you can fully embrace moving into actually loving yourself. And I got to tell you, when that finally happens, and it's not easy to do. It is easy if you have a process, but if you're trying to do it on your own, it's hard. It's hard because neurologically, you've got these pathways that have been created, and you can't, just like a highway, you can't just throw the gravel in and hope for the best. You got to really do some work to make sure that it stays, that it's gone, that it's not coming back. And so that's what I do. That's a long-winded answer of a transitional transformational coach.
I love that. I think everything that you said is so valid. And I just think about, I've been really into like childhood traumatic behaviors lately, and figuring out, you had talked about the bugs and the issues that stem up that people don't even realize, right? Like the behaviors, the reactions, everything, the habits that we have, some of them are so deep rooted that they're from our childhood. Your friend who you mentioned, that comment from the principal, the way that you two took it, it's like, okay, well, she took it that way because of something, maybe a parent reacted to her poorly or a friend reacted to her, and it put that way of thinking in her mind, whereas you had the opposite idea in your head. And I think that that's so important for people to realize too, that take a second to really think about, okay, why am I thinking this way? Why am I reacting this way? Why is my behavior this way? And you'll uncover so much. But you're right, you can't do it on your own. You need somebody who's that objective person who can say, okay, you do this because I noticed X, Y, and Z in your life, and so on and so forth. You also mentioned, I saw on your Instagram, you posted a quote, life isn't happening to you, it's happening through your thoughts. And I think that that's something to really talk about with this topic as well. The power of your thoughts is so incredible. And going back to self-sabotage, people don't realize that every thought that you have, you're putting it into the universe, and it's like the universe is just building this wall against what you actually can do. Do you find that you experience a lot of the people that you work with? Like, how is it breaking down that wall of self-sabotage?
So, the thing that I always mention is, there's another great quote that says, control the controllables and stop trying to control the uncontrollable. And if you really think about what is controllable, what's in your control? And the answer is your thoughts.
Yeah.
That's literally like the keys to the kingdom. That's when if you can sit there and understand that, as you just said, whatever thought you're thinking. So I'm a magic, genie in the bottle, and I'm going to tell you, hey, you're coming to me. first thing I'd say is whatever you're thinking today is going to happen tomorrow.
Mhm.
I can tell you that
Yeah.
with certainty. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like really crazy. Now, will it happen exactly tomorrow? Will help in, in the next 30, 60, 90 days? It will happen. I mean, this is just, this is the laws of the universe. And
Yeah.
we talk about, manifestation, and some people are like, oh, that's, a real woo thing. And it really is not. There's so much science behind it. And when you think about affirmations, what are affirmations? Affirmations are word structures that you are affirming whatever you want. And when you're beating yourself up and when you're self sabotaging yourself, you're giving yourself words. You are affirming all the crap stuff that you don't want in your life.
Yes.
And I can't tell you, when I do my initial assessment with people and I say, all right, what do you really want?
Mhm.
And they'll say, well, what I really don't want is I don't want a guy like this. I don't want a job like that. I don't want a boss like that. And I'm like, wait a second. That's what you don't want.
Mhm.
What do you really want? And very quickly, in a 15 to 20 minute conversation, because I've been doing this so long, I can figure out like, oh, there's a bug. There's the belief underground that's surfacing. And as you also mentioned, we don't see these ourselves. These are like blind spots. The reason they're called blind spots is because we do not see what we can't see. And our subconscious brain has one thing that it is designed to do, and that is keep us safe and familiar. That safety in being familiar. I'm going to keep doing it. And it doesn't know what's good and bad. So it also doesn't know a good thought from a bad thought.
Mhm.
It just knows that you're thinking it.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking it, your mind, your brain is going to immediately go into, I'm going to make sure I keep showing Megan everything that she's thinking because that's familiar to her.
Mhm.
So in order to get past your comfort zone, which is your safe and familiar zone, you have to really focus in on, first off, what do you really have going on in your life? What, like, if you really thought about where you thought you would be at this stage in your life, what did you really want? What do you want now? And then we literally, like, it's the re-engineering this. We start from there and we go backwards. And then, and only then, can I let you know, let's talk about these steps now. Because we've gone from the end and we've gone back and we've literally blasted through. And by the way, everyone always says, oh, it takes 21 days to create a new habit. And we're just about to, be in the new year. So the folks listening are in the future. How many people by the third week of January will have already blown what their New Year's resolution is?
Mhm.
And that's because in your brain, you have your habit that you've created that is deeply embedded, right? It's got a big old groove. And then you've got this new one that you're trying to do, right? And the old one still exists
Mhm.
until it's called synaptically pruning. Think of your rose bushes or whatever, and you prune it off, you cut it off. It's still there. Well, neurologically based, you cannot actually get rid of that other former habit limiting belief. It takes 62 to 67 days, as long as you have been rewiring, reprogramming with a new concept, with a new limiting belief or a new belief that's actually not limiting, it's actually really empowering. And so when you start to understand this, I like to think of what I do as, I'm like, keep it simple with me. I'm like, do not try to make things too complex. Like, tell me what I need to know about something so that I can grasp it. I can realize, like, all right, here's the benefit of why I should do it. And then just tell me simply how I can start. I'm so busy with everything else. I don't need a whole lot of like, do these 25 steps, blah, blah. I want to make it super simple. And so that's what I have been able to do working with people is just, they in marketing, it's called keep it simple, stupid. You know that,
Yeah.
KISS. And it's like, you got to do that when you're dealing with people also. You just got to keep it simple. I mean, and I actually call it keep it simple superstar, because when you realize that you can do this, then you're all of a sudden like, wait a second, my North Star that's out there that I've always wanted to do, it's right there. It becomes a reality for you. And you're like, and I have so many people come to me. In fact, I have something in my office right now that says you're a magic maker. And they'll send me DMs, they'll send me texts, they'll call me, they'll Voxer me, and they'll say, "Oh my God, Hilary, you're a magician. You're like, oh my gosh, what is this?" And there was at one point somebody called me an MFG. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm the original MFG, but I'm the midlife fairy godmother. I'm not the other, I'm the MFG of today. And it's not that this is anything outside of just neuroscience put together with psychology, put together with your own internal desire of where ultimately you're supposed to be. That's what I do. I create out of who you are now. I create your next best higher self. It's already there. It's already there. It just is like, behind all these, I call it hell in the hallway. It's behind all these doors, and we just have to start opening up some of the doors.
It is, and it's really difficult. I grew up listening to Abraham Hicks, and I'm a fan of Dr. Erin Haskell, who's kind of in that same space of affirmations and using your thoughts. And I remember being a little girl, and if I said, oh, I really don't want to go first for the presentation tomorrow in class, my mom would say, well, whoa, 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 whoa. The universe doesn't hear the negative. So imagine everything that you say. She taught us to rewire everything that we said so that it would be like what the universe is hearing when you say, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, is I want to do X, Y, and Z. So as kids, it had us, and even now as an adult, every single thing that I do, I'm like, okay, well, if I don't want to do that, how can I rephrase this thought into what I really do want to do? And it's so impactful in your everyday life. And
your mom is amazing. Amazing. I wish every mom would do what your mom did for you.
Yeah, it's so important. It really makes a difference. And I have a sister and a brother who is younger than me. They're still in college. And just seeing how it impacted them, they were even younger. My brother, I think, was maybe 2 years old when we were learning about these things, and to see everything that he has accomplished. And same thing with my sister. People do think it's like a woo-woo, right? Like, oh, can your thoughts really create things? Thoughts create things 110%. It's so funny when I hear a friend say like, oh, I had thought that I was going to I thought, oh, I don't want to get into an accident. And then 2 months later, they're in an accident. And I'm like, hello, it happened to me once. I was joking around with a friend and he said, oh, hope you don't get into an accident. I said, yep, I hope I don't either. And on our way, I was following him, got into an accident. And immediately I knew what I had done to myself. I was like, well, I put it into the universe, and the universe really quickly was like, hey, this is what you wanted. Are you sure? So
100%. And so what I would say for everyone out there listening, the first step you can take is watch your words.
Yeah.
And when you start to think about words like should, could, would, but, you said don't want, like don't want. Remember what I said, there's nothing negative or positive. Everything is the same in terms of your mind's ability to comprehend thought. So start thinking about when you're saying, well, I don't want, well, I should have done this. Oh, I could have done this. I could have done this better. I could have been a little bit stronger instead, what you have to do is first notice that you're using these limiting words. They are limiting words, which means they are giving you limiting affirmations. Again, this is the best way I know how to explain affirmations. Yeah. Then literally flip the script and say, all right, so you felt like you didn't do a good job. Let's say you just got off of a Zoom call, you had to present, you're like, oh, I should have said this, I could have done that. Instead, congratulate yourself on a few of the things. It doesn't even matter. It's that you're giving yourself your own internal gratitude. You're like, hey, that, you know what, you did do well. Even if you showed up, right? That's what you did well. You actually, pushed the button and there were people on there and you did it. But when you start to just be able to do that and then say, and now what I want to do is perfect, is enhance, is grow, whatever it is. And then you're asking the universe to give you that, right? Give you the ability now to have things that will help you, not hurt you. So huge. So just literally take your phone or, pad of paper or whatever, carry it with you through the day and start to listen to your words. Incredible. And you're going to all be like, oh my God, look what I've been doing. But once you do that, once you are aware, you can now be on that path to, well, wait a second, let's see if this stuff really works. And it does.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think for everybody listening, you have to stick with it. It's not something where you correct one thought and then that's it. You really have to create a habit out of it, right? Stick with it past those 61 days, 62 days, whatever it is, and make it an everyday part of your life. And I think once you get used to it, like I haven't had to think about, oh, I shouldn't have said it this way. Like I think it does literally become a habit. It becomes part of your life. And once you're there, I feel like then when I'm listening to everybody around me, I'm picking up on those negatives. And I'm
absolutely
very clearly seeing, right?
Oh my God, these people they're so negative. Yeah, I love when all of a sudden I'll be in a group and it'll be with a group of students that I've been, working with, and I'll hear somebody come in and be like, "Oh, well, is that really true, or is that just a belief you have? Because something that is really true is factual 100% of the time." And I'll be like, yes, that's so right. Yes. I mean, that's what I love when, they start to have the relaunch mentality start to cross over, like you said, with your mom into their kids, into their family, into their friends. And, even think back whenever this is going to air, think back on the holidays and, who do you keep thinking about that's like, oh my God, so negative. Yeah. And then who do you think that is positive? And, when you were talking, you mentioned that is a concept that I want to just make sure that I'm kind of bringing full circle is the law of attraction. And people think, Hilary, I did it. I've been doing everything you said for the last week, right? Between coaching and group coaching session. I did everything. And, it didn't work. Well, here's the thing. The law of attraction has to also work with other laws out there, right? Laws of cause and effect. It can't supersede. Everything has to tie in with others. So, there's a great song, Garth Brooks, Friends in Low Places.
Oh, I love that song.
Okay, love that song, right? And I threw the glass of champagne and the guy said, remember? And he's like, thank God that girl I thought I was madly in love with, I didn't end up with, or thank God I didn't end up with getting that job because look what happened, or whatever it is. Yeah, I think of it like that. And in time, and I have a podcast called The Silver Lined Relaunch, and I have these incredible people that have had these just like life-altering relaunches. And there's a question that I ask, and I've asked every single one, whether it's on air or off air, would you go back and change your relaunch, the thing that happened, whether it was death, whether it was dismemberment, whether it was, addiction, you name it, right? There's been some really intense ones, massive, lawsuits and people going to jail and federal prison and things like that. Not one has ever said, I would go back and change it. Every single person who has experienced some of those big, big transitions has always said, no, I wouldn't be the person I am today without having gone through it. So if you think about that, and I think that that's why the podcast is doing so well, is it's a reminder that We all have our stuff.
Yeah.
We all have things. And sometimes it's nice to hear others and realize, ooh, geez, I don't have that. Right? My stuff isn't as bad as that stuff. So I want you to realize, and for everyone listening, that you have to be patient. You have to be willing to understand that there is a rewiring in your brain that's happening. There is, imagine like you're about to throw an amazing, even like an amazing wedding or an amazing event or amazing, like, music festival. You can't throw that together overnight.
Right.
And if you're really looking to do it incredibly well, you get super clear, the down and dirty details, everything you want to do. That's what you need to be doing in terms of manifestation as well.
Definitely. And now you have a book coming out pretty soon in the new year about this topic, and it's called 3HQ. Do you know when that's going to be available for people to purchase?
So I do. I actually have two books. One is I'm part as an anthology, so I'm one chapter in a book, and that's coming out in early March. And then the other one, which is my book, my entire book, is coming out in early May. And I'm working with the publisher right now, which is so exciting for me. The title is kind of it's an interesting one because I'm actually asking people to weigh in on it, and hopefully at the end I'll be able to, anyone who has thought of a book has thought about like maybe I'm taking people on my journey through it so they can really get a firsthand. They're going to be able to kind of help the journey, but the book's title is fluid. I mean, it's Relaunch Your Best Life Using the Power of the 3HQ. It definitely could change. Who knows? But right now it's pretty exciting because it's all about the 3HQ. It's about this being on the cutting edge of understanding how you personally can do it so that then you can use it in your businesses and corporations and have things start to, really start to fall in line with your definition of lifestyle of success, not anybody else's.
Yeah, that's so important. My his favorite quote is, comparison is the thief of joy. And when you compare your successes to somebody else, you're always going to have that feeling of just sadness, right? Yeah. Because you're like, I'm missing something. I'm not there, but I should be there. And you had said it before, celebrating the things that you have done instead of thinking about the things that you should have done. I'm excited for your book. I'm very excited. I'm sure a lot of people listening are.
And that's even with me thinking I'm writing all weekend. I'm in editing mode, and I'm not going to share right now. Your listeners are going to have to just wait and hear. But what you just said is the last chapter. And I finally have figured out the simplest way to help people truly get to the next level, not just like, oh, I'm really happy to have 10% or 15 or 20% growth. It's like, there's just something so incredible about what I'm going to share with the 3HQ.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm excited for everybody that's listening. You're going to have to purchase the book and figure out what it is that Hilary is talking about. So Hilary, before we wrap up, why don't you plug yourself and tell people where they can find you?
Okay. So this is all new, but text me, please. Text me using the text number 55444. 55444. And put in the comment section relaunch, right? Where you put like whatever you would be typing or texting to someone. So it's 55444 and just text relaunch to that number. And then we will send you back. For instance, mid-January, we have this amazing free workshop, all these different things. Next year is going to be incredible. And whatever you do, you want to be a part of the Relaunch Co. You can follow us on Instagram, the Relaunch Co. You can go to our website. So much good stuff. I mean, just please. But the most important is if you get into the text, then you're going to start to realize, like, again, yes, it's, there's parts of the head, there's parts of the steps, there's the heart, and we want to be building all of that out so that you too can get to that higher self.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. We are so grateful for all of the advice that you've shared, and I'm very excited for your book. I'm excited to learn more, and I'm excited to follow your journey.
Megan, thank you. And I think you're terrific. I love this interview.
Thank you so much.